The following is a Just Green production brought to you by the Might Be News Network.
What's up, everybody? It's the week of July 15th, 2019. My name is Taylor Cooper. This is Might Be Sports. With me, as always, Kevin Reevy. What up, Reevy?
Happy to be here. Feeling good. Life is awesome.
What about you, CJ? What up, dude?
I don't know. We need to go back in time.
Back in time?
So this is sports, but we have to talk about news.
Uh-oh.
Since it was touched on news about the nets for sharks at the beach.
This is for you, co-host Kev.
Yes. They exist. They exist in Australia. And they're not, some are nets, some are actual barriers. But so what they let the small jellyfish through. So you get stung by jellyfish.
So going back, co-host Kev's point this week on Might Be News was that he's tired of sharks, essentially. He's terrified of them.
Yes, and he said they could use the baseball nets to stop sharks at the Jersey Shore.
Yes, he said that Major League Baseball should just donate all their nets and all their stadiums and basically surround the coastline with it.
That would be a better use of the nets.
But it would just let the jellyfish through, and then you just get stung at the beach, and then someone would have to pee on you, and it's
a mess.
It creates a weird scenario, and, we know John has the thing with the furries. I don't know, maybe co-host Kev has something with the
sharks.
No, with getting peed on.
Oh, that or dolphins, because he would prefer to get raped by dolphins than get bit by a shark.
But we're not judging. We're just correcting.
And if you have no idea what we're talking about with this, which is probably most of you, go listen to Might Be News this week because it was a shit show. But it was also very cool.
I haven't done the research, but I would bet with pretty fair certainty that you're way more likely to get killed by a shark than to get even injured by a baseball at a baseball game.
Yeah, I suppose you're probably right. Well, I don't see that. I don't see how you could be wrong in that.
Well, I mean, if you go to a White Sox game, you're completely fine now since the net goes all the way down.
Yeah, and there's hardly any sharks at all at White Sox games. I agree. It's very unlikely you're going to be killed by. Oh, you meant foul balls. Okay, I see where you're going with that. See, even I confused myself. Yeah, very few sharks at baseball games.
So this episode here is very special because we've been talking about something for what now? 3-4 episodes in a row? And it's finally happening. We have Dr. Meredith Wills. She's a sports data scientist. She's an astrophysicist. She's a sports data product specialist for sports media technology. She's going to be with us shortly to talk about these juiced baseballs.
Using terms like coefficient of static friction, but making it fun for the kids, No, this is going to be good.
This is going to be great. I'm really excited to talk to her because I read the article in The Athletic that she put out. You sent it to me. And I didn't understand most of it, but it was all very interesting. And the graphs that she has in the article that we can't obviously show you on this show made sense to me about how she showed where the baseball the home runs went for each year since I think 1990 I think. Very, very interesting stuff. It's fluctuated, but it's been pretty much a straight line up for the past couple years now, and it'll be interesting to get her take on all that. Another thing that I wanted to talk about is that this Saturday, July 20th, if you're in the Downingtown area, a few of us from the network are going to be down there at the Downingtown Little League Fields for Bats for Matt. It's a charity event that co-host Dan from Might Be News puts on every year in honor of his brother passing from leukemia. And everything goes to a great cause. There's a ton of raffles going on. I saw some of the prizes. It's incredible. It's crazy, crazy, crazy. Go down there, check it out. We're going to be down there doing some recording, hanging out with people, talking to co-host Dan and Allison from Relatable Radio as well. about this incredible event that they're throwing down there, and they throw every year. They do scholarship funds. They do all kinds of stuff. It's really, really incredible. And we're really looking forward to being down there. We're going to be down there throwing out some koozies. Got some koozies made. Look real nice, pretty official.
Not to brag.
You guys are looking at it pretty nice, right? CJ, you're using it.
Label out.
Yep, label out. You know, billboard. It's nice.
Keeping my lukewarm water even lukewarmer. Lukewarm?
Yeah.
No, I think you want to go it's cool keeping it. You don't want to say your water's getting warmer because of the koozie.
You don't, but it's okay. Maybe that's the effect.
Why
that
not?
You want.
A koozie keeps the hot. It keeps it all in. If it's hot, it keeps it hot. If it's cold, it keeps it cold.
Yeah. Either way, it keeps you away from whatever that thing is.
It's like a coefficient of static friction kind of thing you wouldn't understand. So, well, I mean, I can get into it with graphs and all that, but it's just going to be a long process.
So, if you have a drug test coming up, go grab your Might Be News koozie. Yeah. And it will keep your urine sample toasty warm.
Toasty warm. I'm really excited about this because it's just going to be a lot of fun to get out there and hang out with some people that may or may not listen to the shows, and also hopefully get some new listeners. I'm going to be recording down there pretty much all day. We'll be down there around lunchtime, so come through. If you're in the Downingtown area, go to the Little League fields. Look up Bats for Matt on Facebook. Look up batsformatt.com. It's all great, nonprofit, fantastic stuff. We're going to get Dr. Meredith Wills on the phone. We'll be right back. All right, back with us on Might Be Sports, we have Dr. Meredith Wills. This is finally happening. Dr. Wills, I'm so excited to talk to you. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So you wrote a article for The Athletic about these baseballs. I've seen it on ESPN. A lot of people are talking about it. A lot of players are talking about it. Why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about the article and the research that you do?
Well, let's see. The article from just a couple weeks ago has to do with baseball for this season, and in particular relating to this insane surge of home runs that we've had, also to some of the issues pitchers are having. And what I did was I took the baseballs apart, basically, and looked at them as compared to balls from previous years, both the set of years that relates to around the 2017 home run surge and balls from before that, to see how these differed from those. And what I found was that while you'd had a few, well, actually I should say one very small difference that led to the 2017 home run surge, in this case, there were a number of physical differences with the baseball. What I found was that the balls were rounder, the seams were lower, the leather was smoother, the laces were thinner, all of these things that are noticeable differences either to the properties or the construction of the ball. And they're unlike anything we've ever seen. I mean, it's no wonder that we're having this effect within the game right now, because the ball is completely different.
And yeah, everybody should go on theathletic.com and search for this article. You can tell, I mean, just by looking at it, Taylor was commenting a little bit before we put you on that there's a lot of scientific stuff in there, and it's really hard to grasp exactly. Like it's a little bit of a tough read because it is so scientific, but
you do a great job of explaining it, though. You really do a good job explaining it.
I mean, it's unfortunately long, and the more I talk to people, the more I realize I wish I had a way to make it shorter. But yeah, I appreciate it's 3,000 words.
You need like
it's
a companion
I promise.
Piece. There should be like a companion piece, some like a pocket dictionary for these things. But no, it's great. I mean, you really do break it down. Right. And I mean, you do break it down really well. Anyone can read this and figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
I mean, you break it down in multiple ways. I mean, of course, there are terms like, coefficient of static friction, but I like how you have an awareness that, not everybody's going to know what that means, and you explain it well. There's just a lot of great things in this.
One of my biggest takeaways from the article, and not to sound like somebody who reads books to look at pictures, but the graph of the home runs over the years and
Isn't that fun?
it's just skyrocketing
Yeah.
where we are now. And to read about the changes in the baseballs and why a smooth surface acts the way that it does is so interesting, and it's something that I don't think a lot of people think about. And can you tell me how many years of baseballs have you gone through and compared this year's baseballs to?
Well, let's see. There are the groups that I have. I guess there are 76 balls that are pre-2019. And you have the article in front of me, or in front of you. I don't. Sorry.
Oh, no, it's okay.
But I know that I want to say it's the pre 2017 home run surge set, which would be 2000 to 2014, is what, 44 balls, I think, and then there's and then the other one is 32. I could have those numbers mixed up, but yeah, there's a lot of baseballs, and then there's 39 for the 2019 set. So I spent a lot of time taking apart baseballs and measuring them systematically. And the room that I'm sitting in right now has boxes and bags everywhere full of disassembled baseballs. I am not joking. I'm staring at them right now.
And that's the thing. You put the work in. And so how has the response been since you released this article and people are digesting what you've done?
The word avalanche comes to mind.
Wow.
It's been a little strange, actually. I guess the thing to realize is that my background is obviously started in astrophysics. Now I'm doing sports data science, but it's science. I bleed baseball, but I am a scientist, and scientists don't usually get this kind of popular attention, I guess. I'm not even sure what the right word is. My dad keeps calling me famous. I'm like, no. I know people who are actually famous. This isn't famous. It's just I'm ecstatic that it's getting this level of response.
Well, some people inside baseball might call you infamous. I think I used the word notorious, and my dad didn't like that. And I'm like, well, it depends on who you talk to.
So yeah.
Well, I'm sure that this whole thing created quite a obvious buzz within Major League Baseball. I mean, you're essentially saying that the baseball itself has a lot to do with all these home runs and pitchers' stats just being blown away, and normally very reliable pitchers not looking like they're unreliable right now, which is very hard to see. As Phillies fans, we look at our pitching staff, and
I think that has a lot more to do with
their talent than the baseballs. I'm saying, obviously, but like even Aaron Nola has had kind of a rocky start to the season. Yeah. I wonder if anything like that has anything to do with it. What was it? Justin Verlander had something to say about it recently, and all kinds of stuff.
Oh, I mean, well, Verlander's comments alone, I know the pitchers tend to be discreet about having issues with the ball. Mm-hmm. The phrase that I heard from one pitcher is that they don't like it to sound like they're making excuses.
Right.
It's the ball's fault, not mine. But I actually was really glad to see him do that. Not, there's some people who complained about the profanity or whatever. I just found it refreshing to see somebody actually being willing to express their frustration.
Right.
These guys are public figures. They're on a stage all the time, and they don't really get to be themselves or express themselves. Or if they do, a lot of times it's not, you come off to someone who people may not like, which, I mean, we all love JB. This is no big deal.
Right.
But just to sort of be openly frustrated with the situation that they're in, it was nice to know that, it's a real problem. And this isn't just something that you're kind of hearing through the grapevine or secondhand or whatever, but he was very direct about it. And it was nice to actually have someone do that.
Yeah. So Verlander's quote was, let's see, and it's just an actual point you bring up in your article. They own the effing company is what he says. We all know what happened. Manfred, the first time he came in, what did he say? He said, we want more offense. All of a sudden he comes in, the balls are juiced. It's not a coincidence. We're not idiots. That's what Verlander had to say. And in your article, let me pull this up. I believe you referenced this. let's see. It says, yeah. So when somewhere in your article you say you reference in 2018 the vice president of MLB executive vice president Chris Marinak says we are particularly interested in providing even more input and direction on the production of the official ball. This is in 2018 after they took over the company that creates the baseballs. And then let's see, on top of that, you have a quote that says, I guess that was from this year from Manfred before the season started, saying variations that we don't know how to eliminate are the reasons.
That was actually early in the season. He
So
said
early in
that.
the
That was
season.
after it was apparent that the home run surge was underway, and up until about a week, less than a week before my article came out. It was right around when Jason Stark, he had an article, he came out a few days before mine, that maybe hit a nerve. I don't know. And that was the first time that we heard anything about drag. But before then, everything that the commissioner had said was something along the lines of handmade product, ball-to-ball variations we don't understand, that sort of thing. And the message has slowly been moving from it's random to it's, yes, it's drag. At one point, he brought up the pill for a while, stopped talking about that. Now we're back to, variation ball to ball, and that somehow as if this variation will go away, which I find all of it sort of self-contradictory.
Right.
Because from the beginning, the whole point of buying the company was for greater oversight, for greater quality control, to know what's going on. I mean, that was the whole point of the Home Run Committee wanting this. They wanted more rigid specifications. They wanted aerodynamic testing, which is something Rawlings had never done before. And so that was the whole point. And even one thing that I also mentioned in the article is that MLB, I think the article was April 11th, MLB officials told Joel Sherman with the New York Post that they knew the drag was lower. This was 2 weeks into the season. I don't know when he did the interview, but presumably that would mean before the season started, they knew the drag was lower.
And you put all these pieces together, and it becomes clear.
Well, but I guess I'm not sure why it's been done that way. I mean, it's there's a disconnect, clearly. Whatever it is, I don't want to say that there's been massive oversight issues, for instance, because whatever whatever MLB promised to do with respect to Rawlings, as far as oversight, if what they're saying is actually what's been going on, then they're doing a really, really bad job of what they promised. But it's just the whole thing is very confusing, and I don't really understand. They're Major League Baseball. I mean, shouldn't they be able to get a better handle on this?
Right. It's insane.
They shouldn't need me to be the one publishing this. They should have come out with this to begin with.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, that's what it takes. It takes someone like you. And I think, the NFL is kind of, I think lately they're more used to being in this kind of, situation with Deflategate, their own problems with, who was it? Ray Rice, suspending guys, and videos come out, and they just seem to be caught with their pants down all the time doing the wrong things in the court of public opinion. So I wonder if Major League Baseball, they're kind of just getting a feel for this thing too. They underestimate people like you and the fans noticing, players noticing. It could have just been them being naive to what they were doing.
Right.
I suppose. I mean, I tell you, I do have to wonder what I just said about the aerodynamic testing, for instance. And a lot of this, it's almost like the more conversations that I have with people, the more stuff comes to light, the more I'll think about. One that came out just a couple days ago actually was Buster Olney had an article out talking about how the changes with the ball are now impacting teams in the context of the trade deadline because they suddenly can't evaluate players properly.
Yeah.
Because there's no context historically for how a guy is performing this season versus anywhere else previously in his career. Not something I thought about. Or the whole issue with netting, which is now a bigger deal. There's all these unintended consequences. But one thing that did strike me recently is like I said, there was no aerodynamic testing until the home run committee called for it in a report from just slightly over a year ago. So the baseballs we're seeing are very likely the first ones Rawlings has ever made that have undergone aerodynamic testing, which is the first time they've known anything. That does, what's the word I'm looking for? The idea that they might not know what is coming out of the testing or what it implies because they just haven't done it before might account for the fact that, maybe what they expected wasn't quite this many home runs.
Yeah, that makes
maybe
sense.
They expected, because Rob Arthur did a report back in April, or published an article, I should say, back in April, where by the first week in the season, he was able to show that just, based on kind of StatCast data, that the ball had less drag, and he said it looked like it was going to be like 2017. So it's possible that MLB thought the same thing based on however they did their testing, and instead you get what we're seeing now, where it's going to be 1,000 more home runs than last year and 500 more than 2017. And honestly, every time I hear it, the rate has gone up. It's like the number gets bigger every time for what the end of the season is going to be. So, this may just kind of be that MLB is surprised. I'm surprised.
We're talking to Dr. Meredith Wills. She's a sports data scientist, astrophysicist, and sports data product specialist for sports media technology. Meredith, there's been a lot of talk. You briefly brought up the Nets. We've talked about the Nets quite a bit on this show, and talking about pros and cons. If they're literally assembling a baseball made to travel farther and faster, is that an argument you think in support for Nets, at least up and down the foul lines? If these balls are designed to move at a faster rate and more impact?
Well, I guess I would probably shy a word from the way it's designed.
Okay.
They do. That's just a fact.
Yeah.
They travel at a faster rate. The way I like to describe drag is that the ball just doesn't slow down as quickly.
Right.
And so when it hits whatever seat, it's going to be moving faster and have more energy than last year's ball, than the ball from 5 years ago, than the ball from 10 years ago. And it's to the point where if you've got a given seat that you sat in 10 years ago and you're sitting in the same seat now, and it's along the third baseline, the first baseline, it's, close to the field, and you get hit, it's genuinely dangerous at this point. So the analogy that I used at one point was, in my mind, netting feels a little like seatbelts.
Right.
Yes, I understand that there are purists who think it's annoying. They think they can catch the ball. These fans think they can catch the ball. You can't catch the ball.
Right.
Just start from that assumption. You are not a professional ball player. You will get hurt.
Well, there's also
a seatbelt.
There's so many more variables now in the game as well, or in the crowd than there was years before. People with their heads down, looking at their phones everywhere. Less reaction time. It's all very interesting.
You know what I wanted to ask you? This is kind of unrelated. I'm not sure if you have any input on this, but I heard an interview with Mitch Williams last week where he was kind of defending his own era. And one of the things he brought up was how the radar, where it picks up the baseball now, is when it leaves the pitcher's hand. Where I think his claim was that when he played in the early to mid 90s, it was when the ball crossed the plate. And his claim, it seemed dubious, but he said the difference might be between 5 and 7 miles per hour between when it leaves your hand and when it crosses the plate. Do you have any input on that?
Well, the difference between leaves your hand and crosses the plate is true. The idea that, is he talking about like TrackMan versus a radar gun?
I think that was his point. Right. Is there any
ball velocities that are used for the speed of a pitch are basically the radar gun speeds. Whatever you see at the park, it's always the radar gun speeds.
So do you think, is there any truth to his claim that, when he was playing, when he was throwing, 97, 98 miles per hour, it might read as, 103 now?
It wouldn't surprise me it's off by a couple miles an hour. And that's just because the radar guns themselves have gotten better. But I don't think the way he's describing it wouldn't be the case.
Right.
It's not like a radar gun the technology hasn't changed such that it's now going to measure more accurately 60 feet away or 90 feet away, say, than 30 feet away. That doesn't exactly make sense.
Yeah, it did seem unlikely to be that big of a difference.
Yeah. What I do know, though, is that, and this is as far as I know, this is more for strategy to some extent, for fans, whatever, is that the speeds that you see for pitchers for their pitch speeds at the park aren't necessarily accurate. In fact, it depends on the park. It depends on the pitcher. I find some of that very interesting. It's not unusual, for instance, to hear that they'll put up a speed for an opposing pitcher where the velocity is too low.
That makes sense.
Just to get in his head.
Right.
Why not?
And I mean, if you're paying any attention to that as a pitcher and you're throwing hard, you're like, man, I'm normally up at like 94 and it's showing 92. I got to put a little extra on this. You can see that.
Yeah. Yeah. I've also heard of at least one situation where they just didn't put the speeds up when the guy was pitching because if he was already not doing well, they didn't want it to get in his head. Your velocity's down 4 miles an hour from it was 5 years ago, and you're going to fixate because that keeps coming up. So they just stopped putting up his speeds.
Now I've seen people talking about your article on ESPN. I've heard people talking about it on local sports radio. There's a lot of mixed reactions to it. People that wholeheartedly believe it, people that are wholeheartedly doubting it, or maybe not.
I want to talk to someone who's wholeheartedly doubting it.
Maybe I should.
Haven't had a chance yet.
Maybe I should rephrase that. More or less shrugging it off as well. It's just a different ball. I wouldn't say it's juiced. What do you think that the fact that Major League Baseball is kind of looked at as such an quote unquote old school pure sport? Do you think that might have something to do with people just kind of shrugging it off, like they just don't want to believe it?
What I think some of it seems to, at least the impression I've gotten, is that there seems to be a lot of nitpicking on the word juiced.
Right.
Juiced implies intent.
Mm-hmm.
And how do I put this? The extent to which you can determine intent, as opposed to just being aware of a situation or anywhere, or not being aware of a situation or anywhere in between, is not something that we're in a position to do. Yes, MLB knew at the beginning of the season, or certainly by April 11th, that there was lower drag on the ball. That does not speak at all to motive or intention or whatever. That's just purely information. So they knew that there were going to be more home runs, but that's not necessarily the same thing for some people as quote unquote juiced, because juiced tends to be like with the NPB. They did actually juice the ball. They went in on purpose and they specifically said, we're going to make this so it'll travel farther. There's no information that speaks to that. We know that they changed the ball, but it's also just a better baseball. It happens to be rounder. That's one thing Rawlings has been going for a while. They also tend to focus on making seam height lower. And look, we happen to have lower seams. So they've made a really, really good baseball. It just turns out that it's proving to be a problem.
Yeah, I think that's what people are looking for now, is kind of like the smoking gun that leads towards intent to kind of change the way the game was going. You could see there, around like 5 years ago, the game was really moving away from, the offensive side in a major, major way, and pitching was just totally taking over. Guys like Clayton Kershaw, Jake Arrieta letting up like 9 runs in the second half of 2015, 2016. And, I mean, we can't say with any, certainty what the intent was without kind of that specific evidence. But if we're just going to go with opinions here, if we're on the jury, one of the things that kind of swayed me was specifically the quotes you had that we previously stated in your article, and his comments kind of after your article came out, Rob Manfred, when he said there were 2 specific quotes in an ESPN article that came out after yours, where they interviewed him, and he said, At the very beginning, he said the flaw in logic is that baseball wants more home runs. And towards the end of the article, another quote was, "Let's not forget that our fan data suggests fans like home runs. It's not the worst thing in the world." So he does kind of contradict himself within the same interview. And we see a pattern of him contradicting himself over certain periods of time, long and short.
Or certain periods of 24 hours that I've seen.
Exactly. So, and again, these are just pieces we're putting together, and there's no specific evidence out there yet to say, here's the order he put out to make it this way or that way. But so my opinion is, if I'm putting a guilty or not guilty verdict on there, just from what I've seen circumstantially, my opinion sways way more towards the fact that I believe they did this to create more offense. They saw one way they could control the game that maybe no one would notice and would have a small effect, and maybe it had a much bigger effect that they had planned. So what would be your opinion? Do you think it goes in that direction, or do you even want to say, or are you just presenting the evidence?
Well, what I was going to say is I tend to see myself as the expert witness rather than the jury.
Right. Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So as far as intent or whatever, that one I can't speak to. What is apparent to me is that, like you said, there have been stated goals. Stated goals, like, for instance, they wanted more offense. Stated goals, more specifically in this case, that, they wanted to have greater oversight with Rawlings. They wanted to improve the process, improve the specifications. This ball shows they've done all of that, and they've done it quite well. Regardless of this disconnect that Manfred seems to have with with Rawlings or any of the manufacturing process or any of the testing or whatever, the ball that they've made is the ball you probably would have expected them to make based on the statements back in June of last year. So that, I guess, the idea that this would be unexpected, particularly when they knew at the beginning of the season that the drag was down, and let's make it clear, drag being down means there have to be more home runs. You cannot have a ball with lower drags and not get more home runs. One just equals the other. That's just how it works.
Right.
So, so the idea that it's a total surprise and that, oh my God, right now they're just starting to talk about the drag, it's disingenuous somewhere along the line. There's clearly, like I said, a disconnect. And that's, the questions need to be asked. The thing I think that I have the most trouble with isn't the source of the message, but the fact that it's so self-contradictory. I don't really understand why that seems to be necessary or why it has been all along. And that, quite honestly, it's made it very hard for everybody in the game. I mean, it's made it hard for the players. Heck, people who do fantasy baseball are really frustrated right now.
Sure.
The teams, because of the trade deadline. I'm not sure, except for people whose home run numbers are up, that anybody's really enjoying this. I mean, okay, people who like watching home runs, but even then, it's like if you see 9 home runs in a game, they're not really, okay, yeah, we're up by 5 runs in the 5th inning. That doesn't mean a damn thing anymore.
Right.
It has seemed to change the game in a way where you expect to get back into a game or to put runs up on the board. You need to generate it through home runs one way or another. Mm-hmm. And that it's never really seemed to be like that before. Even when you had the home run explosion in 1998, that was really, 2 guys. And, basically the game was being played the same way, but you had these 2, aberrations, and it was fun to watch in that isolated way.
Right.
But when the whole game is changed and you see teams being operated to adjust for that change, even, as you said, mid-season, I could see teams right now maybe targeting guys with the expectation of the baseball going back to previous models next season. So maybe guys that aren't doing so well with this baseball this year, you might want to get them now while they're struggling so that you can get them for a better price for the next few seasons.
Well, the question then becomes, though, are they going to change the ball back? I mean, that's the thing. Everybody's been wrong-footed.
Yeah,
because I don't know, I'm not going to say, yeah, we need to change the ball back. I'm not sure that's the right answer either. There's a lot of discussion that needs to take place. I mean, the important thing to realize also is that, knowledge or not, this is according to the standards of what a good baseball is. This is the best baseball that's ever been made. This is like the pinnacle. We've made the perfect baseball.
Wow.
I honestly cannot think of a way that it's too good. Is basically the problem.
Wow.
Or it's this unintended consequences thing. You know, Rawlings has been focusing for ages on making the seams lower. This is just part of the process, is squishing the seams down. They've finally done it. And now pitchers can't use the ball properly. There's been this focus on the leather being smoother. And you see this, again, you can look at process improvements, and a lot of them relate to trying to improve the leather. Well, now it's smoother enough where Rawlings is also going in and doing testing to try to make our smoother leather easier to grip. Why didn't we just leave it not as smooth to begin with? I don't get that.
It just
and
becomes
then the other
madness.
one, and then the other one is that Barton Smith, who's at Utah State, has been doing some really interesting aerodynamic testing on these new balls. And what he's pointed out is that these are actually smooth enough where it's being disadvantageous to the aerodynamics. I think he uses like a golf ball dimple example. So yeah, you know, if anything, the leather's smooth enough where it's not helping home runs.
That's so funny.
And may be having a detrimental effect. So great, we've created a ball that's so good, and yet the pitchers can't use it. And if you were to make the leather slightly less smooth, you certainly wouldn't detract from home runs, and they might even go up a bit.
That's crazy. Yeah, I was going to make the golf comparison just because we've seen a push now in recent years for golf to maybe roll back the golf ball technology. Mm-hmm. There's so much competition in that market, and the golf ball is getting better and better, the technology, the golf clubs. And I mean, you've seen it already rolled back with the putter. You can't use the belly putter anymore. So they're trying to create this standard. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if that's the way it's going to be with baseball. You know, better for the baseball is not always better for the game.
Yeah. Well, there's also just the idea that baseball as a moving target really doesn't help. I mean, even something as simple as if you're an outfielder and you can't read the ball well anymore in flight, how do you play your position defensively?
Right.
Or if, as a runner, if you can't read the ball well enough to know if it's going to go over the fence or not, do you tag up? You know, everybody's been wrong-footed. And it's because, you know, the first change back, for the 2017 ball, it was mid-2015 when that came in. And that one genuinely looks like it was unintentional. You know, it looks like they changed the laces suppliers, and this was kind of a fluke. But otherwise, you wouldn't have changed the ball at mid-season for starters. But in this case, you know, we've had two changes in 5 years that have had the first one definitely had offense up, also suddenly created blister injuries for pitchers. Kudos to MLB, by the way, the laces are now thinner again, so that particular type of blister isn't occurring. Now there's a new kind of blister because the leather's too smooth. Wow. So, you know, we can't win. Pitchers are just, I'm sorry, just everything they're doing has been bad for them. I feel awful.
Well, it sounds like the only player on the field that this is a benefit to is the person in the batter's box. It sounds, I mean, we've talked about it, how it basically eliminates defense. It doesn't eliminate, but it definitely decreases. I love a good double play. I love watching defensive baseball. I love watching strikeouts. And like you were talking about, Reevy, when it was all about the strikeouts. And I love that, but I understand that people want more offense and want that. I think as far as changing the ball one way or the other, they've got to find some sort of happy medium, right? I mean, because the pitchers are arguably some of the most important players on the team. If your pitching staff is junk,
I was going to say, your pitching staff is half your roster. You think so? Right.
So, I mean, you've got to, I wouldn't, because if they keep it the same, it should, by right, change the way that people grow up playing the game. More people are probably going to just focus on batting. Less people are going to want to play pitching. I look at it like almost like how hard it is to play defense in the NFL right now. Maybe it makes more wide receivers than defensive backs in high school, kind of deal. Meredith, I had a question for you, non-baseball related.
Okay.
As an astrophysicist, what made you want to get into sports data science? What made you want to do that?
I love this question. So I was born on opening day.
Oh.
My dad bought me a bat the day I was born. I was 3 weeks old when he took me to my first baseball game. I don't actually remember learning to keep score because I was so young. I have been an official scorer in some capacity starting in high school and have actually been a professional scorer. I didn't become an astrophysicist till college.
Okay.
It's the other way around.
So it was the love of the game, then astrophysicist, and then right back into.
Yeah, there wasn't a place, because like I said, I'm a scientist.
Right.
There really hasn't been a place for science in sports at all until recently.
Right.
I mean, baseball still had much more in the way of certainly statistics than anything, but statistics is different.
Right.
Statistics is numbers. Science is problem solving. And so it really took, most of the stuff I do now when I'm not tearing apart baseballs is related to ball and player tracking. And that turns out to actually fit very well with my astrophysics background. But until that was an opportunity, there wasn't really a place for me in the game. I'm ecstatic there's a place for me in the game. It's fabulous.
That's awesome.
It's a life dream. My God. But, if you told me, 15 years ago or something, I would have said, I can't work in baseball. So,
wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Well, I mean, we were thinking about this. Taylor brought this up before the show. A few years ago, science kind of came to the forefront of professional sports with the whole Deflategate thing. And we're hearing, Bill Nye and Neil deGrasse Tyson talk about the physics behind that.
Neil is my man. He's great.
So do you have a position on that? Like what you think happened? And
before you answer, a lot of people, all right, you can, as we all know, social media is just a crazy, crazy place. But there's obviously two sides to this whole thing. Half people say, oh, it doesn't matter if the balls were a little deflated. And half the people say that basically costs the Colts the game. What do you think? What do you make of Deflategate?
Wow. I guess I should preface this by saying that my strongest impression of Deflategate was that my cousin's birthday was like right around when that happened. And fortunately, he's a guy who is both a Patriots fan, but has a massive sense of humor. So the cake that we got him was a deflated football. It was fabulous.
That's great.
That's great.
And whenever I think Deflategate, I think Matt's birthday cake. so he's going to love hearing that. But actually, in my mind, I don't unfortunately know quite enough about how the rules worked. I got the impression that it was probably somebody taking advantage of a loophole that hadn't really been closed properly because no one thought of it.
Right.
That's exactly what I thought.
So that speaks more to me to ethics than science.
Okay.
Honestly.
It's a fair answer.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I think too much was being made about this ball guy going into the bathroom, deflating footballs at a rate of speed I don't think anybody would do with any, surgical precision. And I think the most likely answer was
whoopee cushion, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I think everything that was going on was, the officials every game, quote unquote, check the footballs. It becomes part of the routine. And they're probably fine 99% of the time to the point where they're not really checking them all that well. And there might be one at the front of the line that's perfect. And they check that one, put it down, and they're good to go. And someone noticed this and says, hey, we can get away with this. Even if we underinflate the footballs and they notice, there's no penalty. They just say, hey, put some more air in it. So why not?
Right.
So that's just a weird, and I can't believe we got so obsessed with that. And I'm an Eagles fan, and I'm supposed to hate the Patriots
because that was kind of my attitude too. It's just funny,
It was a total media frenzy for sure, and I'm not a Tom Brady fan or a Patriots fan, so I was of course on the side of burn them at the stake kind of deal, get them out of the league. But in closing. before we let you go, I think that,
I actually, with deflate, I want to throw one thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because it kind of fits into to what you just said about, in a funny way, about the people not quite noticing. The commissioner's statements over and over again, certainly for the first half of the season, were about the balls being within specifications.
Mm-hmm.
Of the more than 100 baseballs I studied, I had a single ball that was not within specifications. It was too heavy. It was from this season.
Oh, that's
I remember
really
finding that and thinking, he's messed up. Every other ball I've ever looked at is within specifications, and one from this season is off. I'm not really sure how to tell him.
Wow.
So, Deflategate, there you go.
Well,
anyway, sorry.
In closing,
it's always
go ahead.
It's always a conspiracy. I mean, you know what? We got so worked up over Deflategate, and this is something in baseball that actually matters. And it just seems like enough people don't care about it, or enough people aren't really looking into the intent behind this thing. So,
well, what's so fascinating to me is that the game itself has obviously changed this season. Everybody can see it, but it's not any one thing except for the baseball. Mm-hmm. The single most important piece of equipment on the field is the thing that is changing the game. And I guess it's up to somebody's moral compass or competitive compass to decide if this is okay or not. But it's very interesting stuff. Dr. Meredith Wills, thank you so much for being on the show. And more importantly, thank you for what you're doing, bringing big things like this to light. I mean, and I'm also very, very happy that you found a place in baseball.
So am I. Thanks. And thank you for having me. And it has been, the whole thing has been great. It's just, yeah.
And
it's huge.
I have one request.
Yes.
We're a sports show, but there's other shows on this network. And if time allows at some point, we've talked about this privately. We got to get you on to talk about UFOs and the physics behind.
Yes.
I was talking with some colleagues about this earlier today. They cannot wait for me to get on that show. They're like, "How come you haven't done it already?"
Yeah,
okay. All right. Well, I have your number. You have my number. I'm calling you from my phone. We will be in touch immediately following the show.
Sounds great.
Thank you so much, Meredith.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks.
So you've been listening to the Might Be News Network, but you still can't get enough each week? Become our patron on Patreon. Head to patreon.com/MBN Network to become a patron and get exclusive content now. For as little as $5 per month, you'll get access to extended episodes of all your favorite shows, as well as perks including MBN merch and monthly giveaways. Just want to support the network? Become a patron for as much or as little as you'd like. Patreon.com/MBN Network. 2 hours of bonus content each week guaranteed. Your contributions will help make the Might Be News Network bigger and better than ever before. Patreon.com/MBN Network.
Welcome back to Might Be Sports. That was incredible. Shout out to Dr. Meredith Wills. Thank you so much for being on the show. That's just exclusive, unbelievable stuff.
Yeah. She knows what she's doing. You put in the work. Hey, kids, you put in the work, you get results. And you know what? Nobody wants to, right now, I don't think anybody really wants to do, I've talked to her about this. I don't think anybody really wants to do the work that comes next. Finding out where the intent lies.
Right.
You have to ask uncomfortable questions. There's a lot of beat writers that don't want to, kind of cross that line. And it's also very hard to find out, but there's got to be something. If you believe, and you don't really want to go into like an investigation with a clear bias, but if you really believe that there was intent to change the ball in a way to increase offense, a way to manipulate the game, so to speak, in a more fan-friendly way, there's got to be evidence of that somewhere. There's some way somebody knows something. There's some memo out there or something that would indicate that there's some intent. So that's what comes next. Until then, this is what you have. You have the information. You kind of just have to make up your own mind.
Let me tell you something else. No, there's somebody else in this scenario that really knows what he's doing, and that's you, Kevin Reevy. You get all these interviews. It's unbelievable, and I thank you very, very much for your hard work at finding these people who want to talk to us about what we are interested in and what they're interested in. It's fantastic.
What I always say is I don't know people. I know people that know people.
You know people's Twitter handles.
So this goes to Ryan Spader. I know Ryan. Ryan knows Meredith, and he introduced us, so that's how I know Meredith. But
shout out to Ryan Spader. I'm giving you a couple koozies to give to him next time you see him.
He wants signed koozies.
Oh, yeah. We're going to sign one, and then I'm going to give him some that he can use that he doesn't have to worry about getting Sharpie on his hands.
Well, there you go.
You know, because I'm a good friend.
Exciting stuff.
Just like he is. Real quick, I want to do some rapid fire before we get out of here.
All right.
We got the best sound effects in the biz.
But why is he shooting me this week?
Dude, I go hard. Okay, when it comes to rapid fire, I go
shoots
hard.
him up in the air. It was all directed at me.
Because I'm waiting for you to fire back, Craig.
All right, Joe Montana, $30 million mansion for sale, 500 California acres.
Joe Montana's ranch is on for sale. His house,
$30 million mansion.
God, I bet that thing is balling.
I mean, it looks nice from the photos, but I figure it'd be worth more. You have 500 California acres.
That's a lot of land.
It's too many acres.
But you could subdivide it up and this and that. So that, I mean, I feel like
you could straight up build a couple developments right there.
Yeah.
Feels like everybody's selling their mega mansions, and I think that's something that kind of wears out its welcome. I forget who it was. There was a major celebrity that said, living in one of these things, he said it got so old so fast, he would go down hallways that he couldn't remember. And he had been there so long, and there were rooms he had never been in. There were halls he couldn't remember ever going down before, and it just became too much.
That's astounding to me. I have 2 hallways. 2.
Which is your favorite one?
That's really hard. Realistically, the one coming in here.
I asked the best questions.
You do. That stumped me for a second. It stumped me for a second.
Jennifer Lopez, steamy lap dance for Carly Lloyd.
Yes, please. That would be awesome. Can you imagine?
It's a great video.
Going winning. There's a video of this?
Yes.
I need to find that. You imagine going off, winning the World Cup, coming back and get a lap dance from J-Lo. Incredible.
Jeremy Roenick smashes golf ball out of caddy's mouth.
Was this like an internet challenge?
It was. It looks more like it was just. The video has really no context other than the video exists.
Dude was what? Like laying on the ground with a golf ball in his mouth?
With a golf tee. Like a golf tee.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right.
Usually not from a former NHL player. But I think this guy plays a lot of golf.
Wow.
I think he's a pretty good golfer.
Yeah, but still, I mean, if you're Jeremy, that's big time lawsuit if you fuck this up.
That's why it's good either way. If he misses, you're not going to feel it. You're going to be knocked out cold. And hey, yeah, your lifespan's going to be shortened by 20 years, but you're going to have an extra $20 million.
I'm shocked by this one. NFL's Malik McDowell suspended 2 games after fighting cops.
Right. I think I saw this.
Yeah, where they used the taser on him. It didn't affect him. He got up.
You showed me
Yes.
this. Yes. Wow.
And what was the thing he kept saying over and over and over again?
I need to see the manager.
Yeah, I need to see your supervisor. I need to see your supervisor.
Yeah.
He's being tased, and he's like, need to see your supervisor. Like, come on, man, give it up. The supervisor's not coming. Sorry to say. And if he is, he's going to have a taser, too.
Yeah, at this point, they're going to shock you.
You actually want less people with tasers in that situation.
Right.
Bagel Boss Guy signs deal to fight other viral stars. Ringside meltdown this fall.
All right. Do you know who this guy is?
Yes.
Is that like real short guy that was talking a bunch of shit?
Yes.
All right. So I'm totally fine with this because I think more viral people should just beat each other up. That's how I feel. I'm okay with it.
St. Louis Blues, Robbie Fabry. I don't know.
Febreze?
Well, I'm guessing it's a French name, so I'm trying to put a French accent.
Fabry.
Spell it for us.
Fabbri.
Fabry?
Fabry.
Fabry.
I think
Yeah.
Fabry.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
And what does this
What's
guy
his
do?
first name?
Robbie.
Robbie Fabry.
So
What's he do?
spaghetti with Stanley Cup, uses cup as serving bowl.
He plays for the Blues. Is that disrespectful? Is that a violation?
Nah.
No, I don't think it's disrespectful.
Have
from
you
all
heard the stories?
Yeah, there's
Oh yeah, they do a whole bunch of shit.
there's so much fucked up shit that's happened to that cup. I view it more as a sanitary issue.
So like my whole thing is you see what happens to Tupperware when you put spaghetti in it.
But I mean, you've seen there's several people have shit in the Stanley Cup.
That's so fucked up.
It's fallen down a river that was deemed toxic and was lost for 2 days until divers found it. Like, there is more shit going on in there than some fucking strip club couch.
Is it bad for the sport that it's more entertaining to see what they do with the trophy than watching them try to win it?
I know. It's all about what they do with the bowl. And it's, I mean,
I don't know. I think 3 people die from illnesses that get contracted from eating out of the Stanley Cup.
Wow.
It's
And
dirty.
they kiss it year after year too.
It's dirty.
is it
Gross.
just me or is it, as I get older, I use bowls less and less? Does that happen to anybody else?
Well,
Is that a
I use bowls more.
situation?
Nah,
Here's a
I'm
good question I have. Does one player wash it out from one player to the other? So what the fuck did the person before use it for, and did they wash it out?
Yeah, what are the care instructions?
Yeah.
Is it dishwasher safe? Next. You got another one?
No, that was it.
All right. Let's do
That would be a funny video, though. If I had the Stanley Cup, I would have a video of me loading it into the dishwasher.
Yeah. It's a good one.
Or, trying to get it into a microwave.
Go-
It's definitely not microwave safe.
Definitely not microwave
That's going to
safe.
spark.
Yeah, big time. Just blow up the whole neighborhood. All right, let's do go to the week real quick before we get out of here. Might Be Sports presents the greatest of all time. Of the week. All right. My go to the week this week is the one and only Barry Sanders. Today, as we're recording, it's his 51st birthday. He doesn't have the most rushing yards ever, but I will never forget growing up watching Barry Sanders play football. The guy was just unreal. Would you agree?
Well, he was my favorite player growing up.
Just unbelievable.
I really enjoyed watching him play. I don't think hasn't really been a player since maybe that has as cool highlight videos as him. The closest I've seen actually is you have to go back and look at Darren Sproles' college highlight video when he was at Kansas State. Really incredible what he was able to do. And you look at the competition in college being a little bit less. You could see him at his size doing things that, Barry Sanders couldn't really do to opponents. And, man, Barry Sanders was such an incredible combination of size and speed. I wonder what he would do now, because he had those massive pads that were popular in the 80s and 90s. And I wonder if he would, kind of had trimmed down pads, if that would change his game at all, if he might be a little bit better. But man, the size and power, what he was able to do, and just completely took over games without a quarterback. I mean, I can't remember who his quarterbacks were back then. They weren't good. There was the one bald guy that was the backup for the Steelers for years. I think he kind of backed his way into getting Charlie Batch. He was a quarterback with Sanders towards the end, I believe, and that's just sad. They just had such sad guys there behind center that never were able to get the most out of Sanders' talent.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
But we saw greatness, and he retired early, and it just added to the legend.
Who's your GOAT?
Russell Westbrook.
Boom.
We didn't talk about that.
No, we didn't get to it.
You know what? It's great because, for him, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Hey, the Rockets are still going to stink. I don't care what anyone says. You have to build a team.
Yeah.
And right now they have 2 superstars that kind of play the same exact way, a selfish style of basketball. It's not going to work together, but it's better than what he currently had a week ago with Oklahoma City. So yeah, it's a better direction for him. It's going to be exciting to watch to see how this unfolds. I don't think it's going to be his final destination. I think something's going to probably have to give if that doesn't work, and I don't see how it can.
Yeah.
And neither of these guys are too interested in playing defense. It could be a mess, but it's going to be like they say, a train wreck. It's not going to be good, but it's going to be fun to watch.
One thing real quick before we get out of here, I just wanted to mention, we didn't ask our guest, but you can follow Meredith Wills on Twitter at BBL_astrophysics. That's BBL_astrophysics. There's a link to her article on The Athletic if you're more interested in this stuff. Kevin Reevy, you did a fantastic job tonight. Fantastic.
I don't need your approval.
CJ.
No, actually, I really do. Thank you. It means a lot.
You're welcome.
He
CJ.
was close to the ledge before you said that.
It was a great show. This was a fantastic show. Weeks in the making.
We had fun. That's what it's all about. It's about us having fun. Screw the listener.
That's it.
Did I get that right? Yeah. I always screw it. I screwed it up, didn't I?
It's okay.
Uh,
Thank you guys so much for listening. We'll be back next week. Great job tonight, guys.
Love you.